Ever had a great idea for an app, but then you just get totally stuck on all the technical jargon? Well, today we're cutting right through that noise. We're going to break down the 35 key terms you need to know to build your first AI-powered app, using this really cool, intuitive process that some people are calling vibe coding.
So let's just dive right in. We're not just going to throw a bunch of definitions at you. Nope. We are going to follow the entire journey of an app's creation, starting from just a single idea all the way to a fully functional tool that's live on the internet.
We've actually broken this whole process down into 5 key stages. You can think of this as a roadmap, okay? It's going to take us from that simple idea all the way to a live application. So let's start at the very beginning with that first creative spark. You know, every single app, whether it's some world-changing tool or just a fun little project, starts in the exact same way, with a single instruction given to an AI. And that instruction, it has a name.
It all kicks off with the prompt. For our little project here, we'll start with something really simple, like, I want you to build an app that's like ChatGPT, but each chat is called a task. And, to be even clearer, we can just attach a screenshot of a design we like. That very first prompt, it's the most important one.
Now, here's what's really, really cool. The AI automatically understands this fundamental split in software. It builds the front end, that's everything you see and click on, and it keeps it separate from the back end, which is all the heavy lifting in the logic that happens behind the scenes on a server. This separation is absolutely crucial because it lets you completely change the look of your app without breaking its core functions.
And here's the thing. You don't have to get it perfect on the first try. That's a huge relief, right? If the AI spits out a response with some messy text formatting, we can just send a follow-up prompt like, hey, fix this. The agent has context. It's like a memory of our whole conversation, so it knows exactly what this is referring to.
Okay, let's keep moving. Let's see how we can build this out from a simple, kind of static page into a real interactive tool, one that can actually remember its users and the information they create. And now for a little bit of magic. With just one more prompt, we can add 2 super critical features. First, a database, which is basically the app's dedicated memory for storing all of its data. And second, authentication. That's the whole secure system for managing user logins, signups, and all that password stuff. This chart just perfectly shows how that data is organized. So the schema, think of it like a blueprint. It defines the structure, saying something like every task must have an ID and a title. This is great because it stops bad data from ever getting into your system. The table, on the other hand, is the actual collection of data itself. It's like a big spreadsheet filled with every single task from every user. Now, to make our app smart, it's going to need a brain, and we connect it to a large language model using an API. The best way to think about an API is as a secure messenger. It lets our app's back end talk to outside services like OpenAI's GPT models or Google's Gemini to get those intelligent responses. Okay, so right now we have a pretty smart chatbot, but we're about to upgrade it into a true agent, a much more powerful assistant that can actually use tools and interact with the outside world. First things first, let's add a little polish. We can upload custom assets to really refine that user experience. We're talking image assets like a cool logo, sound assets for things like notification chimes, and we can even enable file uploads so our agent can read documents and get even more context. So what really makes an agent different from a regular chatbot is this loop. An agent doesn't just give you a single one-shot answer. It can use an AI model to think, then maybe use a tool like a web search, analyze those results, maybe use another tool. And it just keeps repeating this cycle over and over until it's completed a really complex, multi-step task. And we can give our agent new superpowers. They're called skills. These are basically pre-built functions that let it perform very specific actions. So for example, we could create a skill that lets the agent take all its research findings and post them directly as a message into a Slack channel. Pretty cool, right? All right, to make that Slack connection and really any others like it work securely, we need 2 final pieces. We use webhooks, which are like a dedicated inbox for our app so it can receive data from other services. And to keep our passwords and API keys super safe, we store them in environment variables. Think of it as a secure vault that's kept totally separate from our main code. Look, building software is never, ever a straight line. It's really this iterative process of building, testing, breaking things, and then fixing them. So let's take a look at the tools that we use to refine and repair our code. Sooner or later, I promise you, you are going to see an error message. It's just an inevitable part of coding. But hey, don't panic.
The whole process of debugging, which is just a fancy word for finding and fixing these errors, is often as simple as copying that error message and pasting it right back into the prompt. A lot of the time, the AI can figure it out for you.
Now, throughout this whole build and debug cycle, we really rely on a core set of tools. We're constantly testing our changes in a live preview. To see what's happening under the hood, we check the logs. That's a running feed of the app's actions. We can also queue up multiple prompts to run one after another, and if things just get too confusing, we can simply clear the agent's context to get a totally fresh start.
Okay, our app is built, it's been debugged, and it's working beautifully in our preview. The final step is to push it out into the world for other people to actually use. Going live or deploying really just involves 3 key steps. First, we push our finished code to a production server. Second, we use a hosting service. That's a company whose whole job is to run our app and keep it online 24/7. And finally, we give it a memorable domain name, its official address on the internet.
And hey, if you're thinking about turning your app into a real business, something often called SaaS or software as a service, the best advice is always to start small. Don't try to solve a problem for a million people. First, just build a tool that solves a real problem that you have. So let's do a super quick recap of this whole journey. We started with just a simple prompt. We built out the front end and the back end. Then we added a database and APIs to give it a memory and a brain. We upgraded our chatbot to a true agent with skills. We learned the importance of the debugging loop. And finally, we deployed it for the whole world to use. You now have the fundamental vocabulary you need to start building your own AI applications. So the only question left is the one right here. What are you going to build first?